Hello, we're here. Welcome. Hope everybody's here. Hope everybody's okay where you are. We're back on the laptop. Had to retire the camera for right now. Couldn't figure out what the problem is. It's one of a couple things, but I think it's the new camera. Sorry about my locks too, but I just got out of the shower. I turned the canner off, canning meat, and I turned the canner off at 5:45. Got into the shower, and by shower I meant the tent we call a shower that you walk into with a bucket. And then headed down here, and here we are. We missed the last two nights. We got a little bit in on night before last, half of the rant, but I'm hopeful that this is going to work. I'm hoping that we're back on the laptop. It's not too bad. I want to get the other camera working because it's just better quality picture, but I have no idea why it was locking up. So if you guys are out there, let me know how the signal is. Let me know how the audio and the video is. And then we'll get going and talking about stuff. Boy, not many people here today. It's so funny. It is so funny because, we were rocking and rolling. We were getting, good amount of people every night. And then the last couple of nights hadn't been that many people here live. And then we had the technical difficulties, which caused it to stop. And then, so I was like, okay, like last night, I was like, well, nobody cares anyway. They're not even here. And then I got a bunch of messages going, where's the deal? What happened to it? Why did it disappear? The pig is turning out good. I'm going to give a good full report on the pig. You guys smash the like button. Looks like only one like so far. So maybe most of the regulars aren't here yet, but you should know, hit the like button, smash it, destroy it. We need all the likes because that's for the YouTube algorithm. And that tells YouTube to recommend my videos to people who ought to be watching them, and people ought to be watching them. So yeah, pig thing's going good. I'm going to go through that and talk about it. Hello, Scott. You guys tell me where you're from. We got Gulf Coast of Texas here. I know Daniel's here from Michigan. He just says checking in, so maybe he ain't going to hang around. I don't know. So nobody's told me where the audio or the video is any good yet. Maybe we're watching two different shows. Maybe I'm doing this show and you guys are watching another show. I don't know. Hannah from Michigan's here. Missouri's here. Somebody going to tell me whether the video and the audio is okay? Sometimes I think I'm just sitting here talking and nobody's watching it. Loud and clear. Thank you, Diane. Thank you. So let me get into talking about my day, and then 5x5. All right. And like I said, I just got out of the shower, so my hair's pretty poofy. And the drier it gets, the more poofy it gets. And then I end up with this 80s Michael McDonald solo after he left the Doobies hair. So had planned on butchering, and I knew I had to do it. I wanted to butcher yesterday morning the chickens, but it was warmer than I thought it was. And they were calling for it to be in the 40s this morning. So I got everything ready, and I'm ready to butcher in the morning. And, of course, it was 50, which is technically too warm. I'm going to get into the rarity of what happened today and how few people even realize how difficult what I did today was. But so I came down to the office to do a few things, and I was hoping the temperature and the prognosticators on the internet, they were saying the temperature was still going to drop 4 or 5 degrees. So I got the root cellar open, came down to the office, was doing a few things down here. And then, so I'm going back up there to get started. And in my mind, I was back and forth. Let me tell you the difficulties. First of all, me even explaining it's not going to mean anything to 90% of the people, because 90% of the people have never butchered before. They have no idea what it's like, and those that have done it in a very commercial kind of way. They've had refrigeration, or they've had ice, or they've had Maybe they've done a deer or something like that when it was 30 degrees outside in the middle of deer season. And so people that I know that are homesteaders that generally butcher in the winter. They already have freezers. They already have, it's nothing like what I'm talking about. It's not even in the same world. It's like going to a movie and thinking that you directed it. You have ice, or you have a refrigerator, or it's cold outside or whatever. And so, many years ago, I was teaching on this topic and people would ask questions. And I was always saying, plan your butchering in November, December. This was the general pattern of life on the farm. And you do it when it's going to be in the 40s for 7 to 10 days. Of course, people right there, I've already lost them because they have central controlled temperature. They have freezers. They can make it as cold as they want to make it. So I'm sitting there saying, butcher in November, December, when it's going to be cold for 7 to 10 days in the 40s, at least lower if possible. And I got a message from this guy from Africa, and he said, we butchered all year. We butchered in the summer we didn't have electricity. And I was blown away. I was like, well, I knew people had to have done it. Most of the people in the world lived in the temperate zones. They didn't live up in far North Europe. Most of the people lived, near the Mediterranean. And they had to be butchering year round. And I know that Saladin and some of the Persians had ice in the summer, but so I was really interested. I wanted to know. And so he told me, we would get, buckets of brine, salt water. We would have enough buckets, and then we would, everybody was on hand. So there might have been 20, 25 people. And we would surround the animal, and we would kill it and hang it up and cut meat off of it so fast. The minute you cut a piece off, you drop it in the salt water. And then people would haul the buckets off, and there were ladies who would take the salt water and hang it up. I mean, the salted meat out of the salt water, hang it up, and they made biltong and jerky and stuff like that. So I was fascinated. I was like, oh, well, okay. I knew there had to be a way to do off-grid butchering. And so we did it. We tried it a couple of times. We did 5 goats one time. Okay, so Scott says, I butchered a lot of deer. I could do it myself easily in the winter, but I hate to do it solo in May with no electricity. Yeah, and deer are a completely different thing too. And so here's the difficulties. In most people that have done deer, very few, you might have done it, Scott, but very few people have done it on their own, just done it by themselves. But like I said, they've done it in the winter, and it's easy in the winter. So it's like walking downhill compared to, running uphill, because the meat immediately solidifies, and the more solid the meat is, the easier it is to get your knife through there. The meat, the fat doesn't turn into jelly. The whole thing doesn't turn into this like gelatinous mess. And so I was already going back and forth in my head. Do I even want to do this? Is it really worth it? But the scenario is the collapse happened when it happened. You either paying, and you're paying whether you're paying money or not to feed the animal. And I've got more animals than I can feed right now because the pigs have broken in and eaten all of the feed. So one way or another, I had to get rid of this, at least one, maybe 2 of the pigs. And so I was going back and forth. I could call it off and say, hey, it's above 50. I don't even want to do it. And like I said, 90% of people have never butchered. The 10% that have butchered, it's a deer and it's in winter, or they've had some type of temperature control. And so do I even want to do this? And so you see my hair starting to poof out. Oh my gosh. I shouldn't even have it to where I can see myself. And so I decided, I got to do it. So I'm walking up there, And guess what happened? Who wants to guess what happened? Who wants to guess what was going on up at the cottage when I got up there? Anybody? Pigs were out. Pigs were out. They tossed the whole place again, tossed all the barrels. They were in the barn. They were destroying things in the barn. And so that's when I decided I'm killing something. Something's going to die. And I don't want it to be one of these huge pigs. And so, yep, pigs were out. So I got the pigs put back in. I fixed an area where I thought they were getting out, which is what I say every day. And then, and I'm recording, you know, and I said, you know, I'm going to go down there and I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to shoot him, kill him. I'm going to bleed him. And then I'm going to come up and start preparing and getting the tools ready and all this kind of stuff. Give myself 1 hour to get as much meat off of him as possible. And here's the thing. And so I talked about today on Facebook that in a survival situation, or in survival in general, whether you're a prepper or whatever you call yourself, it is better to know principles than it is recipes. Almost everybody is recipe minded. And it doesn't, I'm not talking about cooking. That's why we get instruction books with every single thing we order. Because they know that people are recipe oriented. You want steps. I want 7 steps that tell me exactly what to do that's going to result in the solution that I seek. If you have a proper mindset, what you want to learn is principles. If you learn the principle, you don't need the recipe because you can make other things work. You can make do. And when I say recipe, I got to get you out of the mindset of making bread, although it works with bread too. You want to know the principle. When you say that doesn't always work out, nobody knows what you're talking about because I don't know what you're talking about. The comments are delayed. You have to say what it is you're talking about. Dad and I posted a sick calf in August one year so we could have all the organs tested to diagnose the disease. Yeah. So you want to know the principle of the thing. When the principle tells you why it works, why something works. I made small beer, and if you've watched my small beer video, I say it over and over again. I don't want to give you a recipe because if I give you a recipe, you feel like you have to make it like that or you have to use that particular process, when in reality, if you know why small beer works. Okay, so real quickly, small beer is what everybody drank. Nobody drank water in the Middle Ages because water was not safe to drink. So every family made small beer. Small beer was not highly alcoholic. You couldn't get drunk on it. Babies drank it. Children drank it. Everybody drank it. It was made constantly. There was somebody in the family that made it every single day. And it took 2 to 4 days for a batch to come out, but it was just fermented enough that it would carbonate and it would kill any bacteria that was in the water. And so that's but everybody made it different. So whether you called it Swanky or Groot or whatever you called it, or grew it, every community made it differently. Every community had different. Okay, all right, I'm with you, but I'm not exactly sure what you're talking about. I think something is made only one way. I don't know anybody who thinks that something is made only one way. I don't know if you're agreeing with me or not. And so every community, every household had their own recipes, and there was stuff that you like. So you'd make a batch and you go, I like that. But a batch of small beer was whatever you had or whatever you liked. So if you had peach trees or you had cherry trees or you had a herbal garden, that's what you put in it. You only had to know the principle. And the principle is if you had water, and you had yeast, and you had some form of sugar, and sugar is in most vegetables and most fruits, and you put those things together for just a few days. You don't want it too long because you don't want the alcohol level getting too high. And then you bottle it, it would carbonate, which makes it a refreshing thing. And the alcohol that was produced, which is only 1.5%, 2%, would kill any bacteria in the water so you could drink it. So the principle of it was that you had to know why fermentation works. That same principle works with all fermented foods, even if they're lacto-fermented instead of alcohol fermented. It's a way of purifying the food and making sure that it's safe to eat, because you are killing off or holding back the bad guys so that they can't work in it. Okay. Now let's apply this to butchering. Most everybody, including me at one time, would say you don't butcher unless your temperatures are in the 40s or below, because bacteria begins to grow in pork at 40, 42, 43 degrees, and it multiplies the higher the temperature is. Secondarily, you almost never want to butcher alone, especially a large animal, and especially at that temperature, and especially in the field. So there's a different thing between the field and getting the animal to a butchering area where you can hang it and all that kind of stuff. Everything that was a negative is what happened today. So I butchered them in May, over 50 degrees, by myself in the field. And so I told myself the principle is what mattered. So somebody asked me today, how can you can meat so that it doesn't go bad? There's so many answers to that question, because the principle is, if you can mitigate or inhibit bad bacterial growth while increasing good bacteria growth, then you can preserve food from a short amount of time to forever. All right. So what you have to know is, how does bad bacteria work? This is the principle. And how does the good bacteria work? The reason that most people are freaked out by all of this is because they're never taught the truth. And the truth is that for thousands of years, up until our very own day, food by nature, the way it was created, had in it the good bacteria that would turn it into something better or good. So grapes would become raisins. Grapes would become wine. Barley, wheat, and other grains would become beer, would become alcohol. Every food has in it, naturally, by God, the bacteria that will turn it into something. Today's world, if you showed people taking a gallon of milk and sitting it on the cabinet and having it turn into a congealed gelatin, they would freak the hell out, because that has gone bad, right? And in today's world, it has gone bad because they killed all of the good bacteria before they gave you the milk. So if you boil it, or you pasteurize it, or you irradiate it, or you do something that kills everything in it, then when it goes bad, it actually goes bad, because the only bacteria that can be in there is bad bacteria. Hello, blue skies of Montana. Okay, but before the Industrial Revolution, before all of this killing your food before you give it to people, every food, meat, grains, milk, had in it the perfect beneficial bacteria that would turn that product into another product that was still good. So people used to they would milk their cow, they would drink some of it fresh, They would turn some of it into cheese, but they would take a gallon or two and just sit it on the counter. And you know what happens is it turns into clabber. When the girl was sitting there eating her curds and whey, this is from cheese making, right? Hello, Virginia. It's perfect. It's not only perfectly good for you, it's better for you than any of the other food you're eating today. People they competed. Children would compete to get the clabbered milk. The clabbered milk was the gold. You see people today, especially rich people, and they're ordering these exotic cheeses. What they don't realize is that the difference between cheap cheeses, which is for poor people, which is the thing that they kill it first, then they add in bacteria, then they add in chemicals, and they make this cheap cheese that's for poor people. Rich people, what you're getting is milk that's been allowed to go bad. And the badder it goes, the better it tastes, if it's done naturally. All right? And so every food does that. And so somebody said, how do you keep canned meat from going bad? Well, you can it. What does canning do? Canning brings the food to a temperature of using pressure. You can't get it hot enough in the natural world. In the natural world, you cannot get it hot enough to kill botulism. So what you do is you use a pressure canner, which allows the meat inside in the jar to get hot enough that it pressure seals, but anything alive in there is dead. So bacteria cannot grow in there because there's none in there. And it's sealed from the air completely. Yeah, you sheared a lamb and died after 20 minutes before the rot started. That's right. I gave myself 1 hour this morning because I knew, even though it was still cool, the flies would be on it within an hour. So my point here is that if you learn the principle of something, then you know most people have no clue that almost everything in their refrigerator is perfectly fine outside of the refrigerator, except that they bought it from a store where the stuff will go bad. Mayonnaise is oil and eggs. That's what it is. It was a way of preserving eggs. Mustard is mustard seeds and oil. It was a way of preserving mustard. Ketchup was tomatoes with some form of sugar and vinegar. And the vinegar and the sugar inhibited bacterial growth. It was a way of preserving tomatoes. Jams, jellies, all of that were ways of preserving food. All right, so as long as I know the principle of the thing, then I know, and Hava just mentioned it, I need to get this meat, as much of it I can. Hello, Middle Georgia. That's right. If it's real mayo, you don't have to put it in the fridge. Somebody said the other day, we got to get these eggs in the fridge. Well, if you put them in the fridge, you got to keep them in the fridge. Eggs, when they come out of the chicken, have a film on the shell. Bacteria can't get in there. An egg will eventually go bad, but not immediately. I mean, it's good for days and days and days. Put in the right situation, it's good for months. All right? But never wash your eggs. Never wash them. And the first thing they do in the factory farms is they wash the eggs. They are washed immediately. which takes off the protective coating and allows bacteria to permeate the shell. My gosh, you people need to know more about the commercial food system. But what I knew is that, and because I had learned it and studied it and practiced it, is if I can get the bulk of the meat off. I knew this was a small pig. I wasn't planning on going through and like picking the meat out between the ribs and all that kind of stuff. I gave myself 1 hour. I wanted to get both hams, both of the front quarters, the picnic hams and the legs and all that, and the back straps. If I could get that and any other big chunks of meat, I felt good about it. So it took me about 45 minutes. I got both hams, got both front quarters, and the back straps and a few other large chunks of meat. And so I got them into so I had buckets of water ready right there. So I cut the meat off and put them in salt water. So what does the salt water do? Salt water, it not only inhibits bacterial growth, bad bacterial growth, but it has an osmotic effect. So it actually starts breaking down the cells in the meat so that they don't hold their natural juices, so they're not prone to bacterial growth. All right, so I cut off these, and the hams on this thing were way bigger than I thought they were going to be. They were like 18 to 20 pounds a piece. I don't know how much meat I got, but I know that I got one big like trash can which had both the hams in it, and from all of the rest of the meat, I got 2 full 5-gallon buckets, which included the back straps, the loins, which were 24 inches long and yay big around, and I got the whole front quarter. And so I got all of that off the bone, and I put that in the salt water. And so today I started, and I got we have a small canner and a big canner, and the small canner does 8 pints. The big canner will do 16 pints at once. So I consider that 2 canner loads, the big canner. So I did 1 big canner load. So I got 2 regular canner loads done today. I'm going to do that again tomorrow, and I may have to do a third day. I may be able to do 2 tomorrow. I'll try. But it's a lot of meat. And so let me just say that we don't use the word proud in our culture, but I am well pleased. I'm well pleased that I was able to get it done, and excited that I was able to at least do it during the challenge so people were able to experience it, however little I was able to film of it. Yeah, you can coat them in oil. There's a lot of things you can do. You can use water glass. You can use lard. But leaving them in with their natural coating is the longest that they will last the longest that way. Just don't wash them. That's the best thing. All right, so that's the thing. So I got that done. Got a canner load done. I still have the 2 big hams and 1 bucket to do starting tomorrow. There was no. This is a small pig. There was no. I got the meat off of what we would call bacon, but there wasn't any legitimate bacon. So I mean, and it was going to take too long. There just wasn't enough there to make it worth my while to do it. I got more meat than I expected, Daniel. So I was glad to get it. I'm sorry that it wasn't winter and that I couldn't go through with a toothpick and get more meat out so you could be more excited about it. Yeah, there was not enough time for me to go in. I needed to get the meat indoors. It was already starting to get hot. The flies were going to be out, and I was not going to go in. There wasn't enough meat there to make it worthwhile. And so you have to make these decisions. It's very easy, especially from someone from Michigan, to be a Monday morning quarterback and think that, I would have gone in and got the bacon out. If you take all the meat off of the loin, you're not going to get very much bacon anyway. It was a small pig, but it was bigger than I thought it was because it was standing next to a bunch of 600-pound pigs. That's what you want to do if you want to look smaller, is you want to stand next to some 600-pound people. All right, so that's the principle of the thing, and that's why I was able to get it done. I was excited about it. I checked on the kraut today, which I did on day 3 or 4. I can't remember. And the kraut is done. It's really good. It'll get better the longer it's in there, but I'll probably start canning it in the next few days. So I'm going to keep the canner going as long as I have propane. Here's my biggest issues right now. I am going to run out of gas. I've got about half a gallon left. She said she didn't want to sell dirty eggs. She doesn't know anything about anything. A lot of people that are out there at farmers markets, and I don't mean to be derogatory, but they're shopping wives who think that the life is cool and they live on grid. They got the whole 9 yards, air conditioning, everything else. And they want to have chickens in their backyard, or they want to, they don't know anything about the principles of anything that we're doing. People don't want to see dirty eggs, but you can wipe the eggs off. And if you keep your chicken house clean, the eggs won't be that dirty. But you can wipe them off with a dry cloth. You don't have to go in there and scrub them and put them through the dishwasher. Anyways, I don't know what that comment means, Chuck. I don't know what it's applying to. So learn the principle of a thing, and then you can hold on. Yeah, it was brutal, by the way. All right, so here's the thing. We got into a talk the other day where we were talking about saying no. I don't understand why you have to wash the eggs at all. I don't understand it. I don't. Anyways, I'm going to go on to a different topic. Here's the thing. Just keep your chicken house clean. Keep the bedding changed out. Check the eggs regularly. Your eggs should be clean, and you can wipe them off with a dry cloth, and you shouldn't have a problem. Anyways, all right. So we were talking about the fact that saying no did not require a consensus. And the reason I was saying that the other night was because too many people are online acting like it's somebody else's job to lead the revolution, that somebody else needs to be doing something, whatever it is. It doesn't matter what it is. Somebody else needs to be doing something. And these keyboard warriors that get on there and they're like, these sheeple out here who are going along with everything and doing all this. When is America going to stand up? Well, when are you going to stand up? I never have anybody tell me what they're doing. And I talked about the book Wick and the fact that I said that saying no is your only really real inalienable right. Diane, I know that some eggs are dirty. I know that. I'm talking about principles here. Of course, if an egg is dirty, you want to wipe it off. Of course. The best thing to do is keep your chicken house clean, keep the nest clean, check the eggs regularly. Most of the eggs are not going to be a problem. You can let the stuff dry and you can wipe it off with a dry cloth. If you want to wash your eggs, wash them. I'm not going to keep going around and around and around about it because I've been doing this for 20 years. Do it the way you want to do it. So anyways, saying no does not require a consensus, and saying no does not require marching in the streets. It does not require a keyboard. It does not require telling anybody what you're doing. Saying no basically means doing things the right way, the principled way, regardless of what anybody else is doing. So whether that's homeschooling, home churching, home growing things, um, not participating in the things that you think are wicked or evil or whatever is wrong, is saying no, just not doing it. It doesn't require anybody else. And so I get frustrated when I see people that are constantly asking for somebody else to be doing something. What are you doing? Like I said, the keyboard warriors are out there in force, and they are so self-righteous and so virtue signaling about what other people should be doing. Well, give me a 10-year history of your resistance. It doesn't require going to a march. It doesn't require a million farmer march. Saying no is just not doing it, not doing that thing. If you come to the conclusion, that whatever the thing is wrong, then don't participate. Just don't do it. And I will tell you this, that will motivate more people in the long run than all the keyboard warriors out there saying, when is everybody going to rise up? Here's the thing. If everybody would put in a garden and everybody would start raising their own food, and if everybody would stop letting other people control what they do, I can tell you what, they wouldn't have the power to get anything that they want done. If you had some control over the food that you eat, today my lunch was fresh pork, green beans that we canned, and a beer that I bottled from 2 years ago. How do you make societal changes without consensus? I'm not saying that there aren't some times when consensus arises naturally based on circumstances, but I'm not all that sure that we're called to make societal changes. In other words, I think we're called to be societal changes. Too many people. Let me break this down for you. In the 15 years that I've been doing this, 20 years I've been doing this, if someone comes up to me and they're trying to create societal change and I don't know anything about them, anything about their life, anything they're doing that's any different from their neighbor who believes the opposite of them, whatever it is that they want, I don't want anything to do with it. So in other words, if we're not already living the societal change we want, what does that mean? I just want to be driving the bus? You know, that's the thing that worries me. I'm always concerned about anybody that wants power. I'm happy for good people taking on responsibilities in leadership, civil magistracy, and all that kind of stuff. I'm happy for that. But we have to be doing the things that we want the society to be doing. If we want people to be free, we have to be doing freedom, and then be an example for other people to see so that they know what it's supposed to look like. But most people that are in positions or arise to positions, even on local authority, I could not tell, especially in the church, I could not tell the difference between you and anybody else I ran into in the mall. So what societal change is it that you want me to adopt that I can't see in you? And so my main thing is that, and like I said, I understand the doctrine of civil magistracy, and I understand that some people are called to sit in positions or to ascend to positions of some civil authority. And I support that, and I hope that those people understand the principles of freedom and all of those things. But I'm talking to the mass who wants somebody else to do something, who wants somebody else. We don't need an enforced legislative solution to what's wrong with this country. We don't need that. Every time we get that, things get worse. What we need is a million people that just say no. Nope. Let me give you an example. Fauci and a few of the other people, I don't know how to say his name. I don't watch the news. Came on the other day and they were talking about, forced vaccinations and microchips. And people that I know from both sides of the spectrum and all over are like, nope. That's what I'm talking about. Nope. If they always float trial balloons before they do something. They don't ever just come out and go, hey, everybody's going to stay in their house for months. There was about 2 weeks, and we were talking about it on this show, where they were telling people what they were going to do. They float these trial balloons. They're like, maybe if we try social distancing, and these words were coined in some propaganda factory. So what was going to happen? Everybody knew what was going to happen. And the same thing is happening as we go forward. Somebody will come out there and they'll say, perhaps we'll leave everybody on lockdown until we have a vaccine. And then they go, and they wait to see what people do. And then somebody else will come out there and they'll go, oh, well, perhaps we'll require paperwork in order to show that you have the antibodies to COVID before you're allowed to travel. They're not legislating. They just got people out there saying it. And you get your normal keyboard warriors out there going like, this is going to be the new world order. But if 1,000 people all went, nope, here's your license to kiss my ass. Sorry, I'm not supposed to say bad words, and my wife got on to me, and I apologize. I will try not to have that happen again. If enough people just said no, one of my greatest lines ever, not mine, but that I ever heard, was Dennis Miller. And he said, we don't need a movement. We don't need a third party. We just need everybody on the same day to leave their house and just start walking towards Washington, D.C. very slowly. Just casually. Everybody just start walking. It would be about 2 days and things would change. But they always float the trial balloon, so you know what's coming. If no mass response says, nope, not going to do that, then they go, okay, well, I guess we're going to do it. Do you know that when the driver's license first came out? Yes, I know. I'll show that one. My mouse freezes up. So when they first came out with the driver's license, it went all the way to the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court ruled that the driver's license was unconstitutional because it is assumed in the right to free assembly that you have the right to travel to be the assembly, and they can't license a right that is fundamental. So the Supreme Court ruled that the driver's license was unconstitutional. But what happened is the states and the insurance companies came out and said, no, we understand it's unconstitutional, but here's the thing. What if we give you 15% off if you have a driver's license? What if we don't let you get insurance unless you have a driver's license? So they started floating these things, And the people were like, well, I'll go get, if you're going to give me 15% off, I'll go get a driver's license. Well, if I got to have it to have insurance, I'll go get it. And so people went and got them anyway. When it got back to the Supreme Court, there was a principle in law that if the people have already accepted it and it's already basically on the mass sense already being used, they just allow it to go on. And so that's what they do. Now they figured it out. All you got to do is you got to float stuff out there. And if people don't, and I'm not saying rise up and get their pitchforks, just nope. I don't know what anybody thinks about wearing masks. I'm at home and I'm on 40 acres by myself. But if, let's just say, everybody went, nope, what would that look like? Same thing. If they said you can't buy seeds and you can't buy garden products, what if everybody just put in gardens? Did whatever it took, whatever it takes to put in a garden. You think they would change their mind? I bet they would. I bought 60 pounds of potatoes today. The daughter of the farmer was selling them in Missoula because no one would buy them because of the virus. And you know what? And I don't mean to change the subject. It's the same subject, but so when Danielle went to go be with her sister, she told me, she goes, don't get any potatoes because we have a bunch of potatoes. But I always buy potatoes. Whenever I go to the store, I buy potatoes because I always think we're out because I don't know what happens to them. And I don't hardly ever eat potatoes because they're starchy, you know. So I was looking around for stuff and I found we got 7 bags of potatoes that are going to start sprouting. So I'm either going to plant them or I'm going to can them. I don't know why I told that story, just because she mentioned potatoes. 60 pounds of potatoes is a lot of potatoes. What we do is we have these wooden railroad boxes, and we would get 50-pound boxes of potatoes, take them down the root cellar. We filled those boxes up with sand, and we buried the potatoes in the sand and put another box, filled it up with sand. And we kept potatoes for long, long periods of time. All right, it's 747, which is also the name of an airplane. I hope you guys are enjoying yourself. I'm hoping, hey, don't forget, I know it's been a couple of days, but the super chats still work. And it's been a couple of days, but I wanted to mention we ended up getting $162 out of $819 to fix the car. So tomorrow that check comes out of the bank, $819. We got $162. Not that the check's going to bounce, but anyways. And also we talked about this. We need a bookshelf to go right here. And it's everything's backwards for me. It is 3 feet by 4 feet. So I picked out a bookshelf that fits there. Don't just go buy any bookshelf. But if you want to be a hero, you want to participate in the backdrop of the majesty of the Bunker Nation, on my Amazon wish list down below is a bookshelf that you could ship, and it would be right there. And you would always see it. You're like, I'm the one that gave that bookshelf. Let me look at my list. What else? We need 2,000 subscriptions. Let me tell you why. We have 1,717. It has really slowed down. So a lot of people are watching these, but not a whole lot of people are subscribing. So if you're watching this and you're not a subscriber, please subscribe. Just hit the subscribe button and then hit the little bell icon, and you'll get notifications when I go live and all that sort of thing. Hit the like button, but definitely subscribe. And if you know anybody else that's like-minded, even if they're not, hey, thank you, Wardog Heim, for the super chat. Super chats work. They absolutely work. By that, I mean, we're starting to get the equipment that's going to help this whole thing grow and get better. More and more people are going to be in the Bunker Nation. So go to the Amazon wish list. In the Amazon wish list. Also, I was going to tell you, I butchered that pig today, and I used 2 knives, and 1 handsaw. The handsaw was just a regular wood handsaw. And then the main knife that I used for 99% of the butchering was a $14 knife I got on Amazon called a Morakniv, Morakniv. I put a link in the description. It was fantastic. I did the whole pig, even cutting it up for canning with this one knife. And it's a cheap knife, and it's a wonderful knife, and it's very sharp, so be careful with it. But it's called a Morakniv, and that's down in the description. What else? We need 2,000 subscriptions. So if you know anybody else that's like-minded, anybody else that needs to hear this, anybody else that you think would be entertained, are you not entertained? Then ask them to subscribe. Thank you, Dana. I appreciate it. Yeah, Moras are great, and they're cheap, and they're really, really good build quality. And they're I didn't cut myself, and so it was great. What else? Talked about the bookshelf. Don't forget the bookshelf if somebody wants to do that. So here's the plan for the next few days. And we're working on getting some more of the day episodes out, but they may wait. They may have to wait. So here's the plan for the next couple of days. I'm going to can up the sauerkraut. I'm going to bottle up the stout that I made on day 2 or day 3. I'm going to make a new small beer. I'm going to make a new full beer. Hey, by the way, I planted some squash on day 2 or day 3. Got little squashes about that big. So I'm going to be eating squash by the end of this thing. So all this food is going into the root cellar. We're getting meat going down in there. We're going to have kraut going down in there. We're going to have beer going down in there. We're going to have vegetables going down in there. That was the whole goal from the beginning, was to show that in a collapse situation where we did not prepare and we were not ready, that I would be able to increase our preparedness during these 30 days. Biggest news yet, and I don't know if you guys have heard, but I was chasing the pigs, and I chased them into the big pasture. That whole pasture is wheat. Actual heads of wheat. I knew something was up about 2 weeks or 3 weeks ago. I was talking to a friend of mine, and I said, something is coming up in that field, but I don't know what it is. I don't know if it's Johnson grass, but it's different than all of the other grasses growing up, and it's where we had planted before. Well, a year and a half ago, we planted a wheat crop, and we used this old 1940s all crop to harvest it, and it had holes all in it, and we probably harvested less than half, and it would just, and it shook and it threw wheat everywhere. We have a full 5-acre wheat crop. Can't harvest it in May, but if we do this again, or I will do a video of harvesting some of that wheat and making some bread out of it and all that kind of stuff. So we got a wheat crop. We have small garden started. We have squash growing. We have meat going into the root cellar. I'm still going to catch some fish. I may go fishing tomorrow, but I got to go. It's at 53 minutes. I got to end this before an hour. Make sure, hey, everybody, when I'm done, when I'm finished here, go down in the description, read some of the links. If you need anything from Amazon, click one of those links and then go buy whatever you want. The second thing is leave a comment. The comments that you put in live, they go away. They disappear. But comments are one of the things that affect the YouTube algorithm. So if you just wait for a few minutes and come back to this link and then put a comment, say, hey, I enjoyed it, or you're full of crap, or whatever it is. All right? Whatever it is, just put a comment down there. Appreciate you guys. Thank you for the super chats. Those things really help. God bless you all. I love you. And Lord willing, I'll see you tomorrow.